welcome to the second part of Organizing Your Speech, which is the Chapter 12 video lecture. When we left off, we were talking about outlining the body. Before that, we talked about the general steps, and we talked about selecting your main points, developing an organizational structure, I think we talked about creating a thesis statement as well. So now we're going to talk about the next step, which is outlining the body. So what you're going to want to do is list your subpoints and points in an organized way. And you can look at page 251 for a more detailed example of how to do this. When you develop your main points, or after you've created your outline, you're going to develop the main points further. So you'll add more details to the outlines in your subpoints by structuring sentences around those. So you'll start with a bulleted list, and then you'll turn those bullets into sentences. A good pattern is to introduce the subpoint, provide evidence, and then explain how that evidence supports your main point for that paragraph. So introduce the subpoint, provide the evidence for the subpoint, and then explain how it relates back to your topic sentence. It can be helpful to include listener relevance links throughout the body to tell the reader why this information is important to them in this last part or in the transition sentence. Then you'll want to create transitions. So transitions act as a bridge between sections or ideas, and there are two kinds. There are section transitions and signposts. Section transitions are basically what we call transition sentences in 101. They summarize what's been said in a previous section. They kind of preview the next section. In essays, we call them transition sentences or lead outs, which I prefer lead outs. Transition sentences can be a little bit misleading. And it's normally a complete sentence. Very rarely are you going to write something that is a fragment or is a bullet at the end for the section transition. Occasionally your transition might be the second part of a sentence, but it should always be part of a complete sentence at the very least. Signposts are a word or short phrase that can help, helps things to flow. They connect subpoints to each other or the main points. So this might be something like conversely or in addition or in other words, things like that. In essays, we call them transitional elements, and they show relationships between concepts or words in your speech. Some examples for compare contrast: conversely, on the other hand, but, however. Some examples to show a sequence: first, second, third, then, to reinforce an idea you've already said, furthermore, and additionally. So, well, this was when I was using a different software where I had the break, but we're going to keep going through this since we just took a break a couple minutes ago. So now we're going to talk about the introduction. So what are the goals for the introduction? Was there a slide before this that I accidentally skipped? No, there wasn't. Okay. I thought there was. So you're going to start by getting the attention of the audience. This is the attention getter we've talked about. Then you want to convey listener relevance, why the listener should be interested in your speech. And then you want to establish your credibility, especially in a longer speech. Why are you the person they should listen to about this? And then identify the thesis statement, which will outline your main points. So to develop the introduction, the intro is normally about 10% the total length of the speech. And like an essay, it normally starts with a hook, which we call the attention getter in a speech, and ends with a thesis statement. So some strategies for getting the audience's attention are startling statements, rhetorical or direct questions, stories and anecdotes, jokes, personal references, quotations, actions, and suspense. So a startling statement would be something like, did you know that ice cream is the best food to eat before you start an exam? There's actually a study that says that. A rhetorical question would be, have you ever? A story or an anecdote might be something like, I'll never forget the time that a joke is a joke. A personal reference, let's say I was giving that speech about Bengal cats. After breeding Bengal cats for 20 years, I learned that. That would be a personal reference. A quote would be something that someone else said that would draw the reader's attention in. Actions and suspense are a lot harder to use, especially in speeches like these. I probably wouldn't use those. So then your next steps are to demonstrate listener relevance and explain why the topic matters to your audience and establish your credibility. Why are you an expert on this subject? Why should they listen to you? And then again, state your thesis, give the reader a preview or roadmap for your speech. So going back to the Bengal cats example, I decided to use an anecdote as my attention getter here. It was her claws that startled me out of sleep, but I didn't realize something was wrong until it registered that she was yowling. My Bengal, Mithra, was normally very quiet and polite, so I knew something was wrong. When she saw that I was awake, she rushed over to my 4-month-old daughter's crib. I followed her and quickly realized that she had stopped breathing. To this day, I credit Mithra with saving my daughter's life. And someone will ask for a picture of Mithra, who's currently sitting on my bed taking a nap right now. There's a picture of Mithra. Okay, so then my listener relevance statement. You're here today because you believe these cats are dangerous. You might have heard that Bengals are wild, and their appearance certainly supports that conclusion. So then to establish credibility, I'll talk about my experience with these cats. Before I worked as a teacher, I bred Bengal cats for almost 20 years. Mithra, in fact, is not only immensely pedigreed, but she was a professional show cat before becoming my beloved pet. The cattery that my ex-husband and I owned was world-renowned, and we sold kittens to owners and breeders all over the world. After raising many, many kittens, I can confidently say that Bengals are not only safe pets, but often dedicated members of the family who form strong, lifelong bonds. And then my thesis statement is where I made that goal statement with the main points earlier. You should not ban Bengal cats from this community because most Bengals are too far removed from wild blood to be considered a hybrid. Most local and state legislative bodies have excluded them from rules pertaining to hybrids, and in fact, these cats often make wonderful family members. So then after I've made my body and I've created my introduction, I'm going to go back and use what I've already written to create the conclusion. Conclusions are short. They're normally not more than 5% of the total speech. And the main steps there we've talked about before. Paraphrase the thesis, summarize the goal and main points, and end on a clincher. You actually do not want to add any new information into your conclusion. It's just wrapping up, tying the bow on the present. Your clincher is sometimes called a so what statement in essay writing. It provides a sense of closure, often refers back to the introduction, and leaves the audience with a memorable image or idea. Normally they are images or call to actions or rhetorical questions. So some types of clinchers are a vivid image and appeal to action. These are the two most common. A vivid image would be if I returned back, I may do this in a minute, but if I returned back and said something about Mithra saving my daughter's life. An appeal to action would be something like, vote not to ban Bengals from your community today. You've heard them many times. So some main takeaways: developing the body, you're going to start with the main points and then word them, create subpoints and choose a pattern, develop an outline and thesis statement, and then create transitions. To develop your introduction, you're going to start by getting the audience's attention, establish relevance and credibility, and then state your thesis. And in developing a conclusion, you're going to restate your main points and end on a clincher. And that is the end of the Organizing Your Speeches presentation and the information you need to know for Chapter 12. I look forward to seeing you guys apply this in your upcoming speeches, and have a great day.